Hello, everyone. Sermon recap, kind of. Actually, not. We're not recapping anything.
I don't remember the sermon.
I don't either. I've slept.
At least twice.
It made such an impact on me that I don't remember. I'm kidding, sort of.
Kidding.
If you want to watch the sermon, come back on our YouTube page and watch it.
Yeah.
But I am here today with our executive pastor, Brandon Roscoe. Pastor Brian is on vacation with his newly graduated senior. He's officially an empty nester.
You're right.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Because having kids, man, you'll get there soon. Sooner than you'd like.
You could be an empty nester.
Could be, but we're not. I've got a.
That's your fault.
I blame God.
Okay, so if you have not met Brandon serves as our executive pastor at Church on Main. He oversees specifically finance, facilities, really administration, all that kind of stuff. Trent oversees missions. I oversee worship and arts. That's kind of the gamut that gets covered. But Brandon takes the lion's share of responsibility around here and is responsible for the most people. But you have, so his wife Lisa sings in our choir, is involved in worship ministry and several other areas as well. You've been on staff for how long here?
5 years.
5 years.
Hard to believe. Now, 5 years by calendar.
Yeah.
In the middle of that is COVID. So that's at least worth 2 to 3 extra years.
More gray hairs.
Yeah, for sure. You can see them. That's why I get my hair cut so short. Is so that you kind of take the gray off.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your family.
All right. So, like you mentioned, Lisa, my wife, we married a long time.
How long?
So, what's this year? 2024. So,
Got
we're
him.
like 22 years.
Okay.
22 years in August.
Nice save, Lisa.
So, pretty amazing. Lisa's great. She's much, much, much nicer than me.
I can attest to that.
As probably most of you, if you're watching, you could probably agree and affirm that. So,
well, you and I are cut from a lot of the same cloth.
We are. So
very pragmatic.
We need a really nice wife to overly compensate for our natural gifts and beauty. Mm-hmm. In other words,
moneymaker.
Not really the way we look, but the way we act tend to be a little serious, a little direct, and so a little softening of.
I'm not good at having. Neither one of us are good at having fun.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what
fun is work.
Fun is work.
That is fun.
So let me take some time off, and I'm gonna go do something else that's more work related.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. So one of the things I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? I was like,
I didn't tell you on purpose.
You didn't. But like, if I go look in my bag, I almost pulled them up here. Like all the books I read, they're not fun.
No,
not a single one.
No.
Like the book I'm reading, God and Money.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That is a blast. It's like one of those Harvard Business Review, something you'd read when you're going to get your MBA. And these are guys that were at Harvard, and they found God, and as a result. Cool. Wrote on what they learned. That
intrigues me.
So super smart guys. I'm like, all right, those are my kind of people. Super smart people that went for one purpose, found God, and redirected their life.
Yep.
Right? You talk about your story, my story. We aren't conventional.
No.
I would even beg to say, even Brian would fall into that category.
Yeah, for sure.
That we arrived at Church on Main in very unconventional paths.
None of us set out to do this.
No.
Yeah.
No. God decided to change our mind for us.
Yeah.
And
it's much better about that.
Create a new path, because I wouldn't have chosen this.
Okay, so you've been married 24 years.
22 years.
22 years.
Yeah. So married 22 years.
You have 3 kids.
3 kids. So I joined Brian. I now have 2 college students.
Okay.
Right?
So Brett's your oldest.
He is. He's 20.
20. Okay.
And he's at Georgia Southern. Been there 2 years. And
you think he's going to make it out?
I do. I made it halfway. Halfway point. And
it's touch and go for a while.
There were some chinks in the armor, touch and go, a couple of questions in the beginning
join the club.
I can relate.
Yeah.
So it's super hilarious because he's like, I know y'all's story, me specifically. And so.
Doesn't give you permission, son.
That's more than learning. This is my story. This is who I am. This is my experience. Mm-hmm. Please learn from it.
Yeah, words of advice and the experience of the unwise.
There you go. Exactly. So oldest son just finished 2nd year.
Got a great head of hair on him.
He does. Way more hair than I do, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's because you cut it, though.
It is.
You've got a great head of hair.
So when I let it grow out, No kidding. Now there's product for this.
Sure.
So back when I did this, there was no such thing as all these fancy products. And I'm not trying to get all feminine or girly on this, but like it turns into a football helmet. It just gets big.
Poofy.
Not cool big like some others that, might get really big and super fun, but it just gets thick, heavy, dense, big. And so I like to consider it my football helmet. So I cut that off.
Yeah, smart.
And change that. So there's Brett, and then daughter just graduated high school. So much like we were talking about Pastor Brian, now being an empty nester, I would be. However, my daughter is not our last kid. So daughter, Erin, is almost 18.
Arguably
18.
my favorite Roscoe.
True. Okay.
There's
a reason.
She's a good human.
Yeah.
And she's a great babysitter.
There you go. That's it.
She makes a good cup of coffee in her coffee shop.
She does. She volunteers here at the church. Loves coffee. She's also headed to Georgia Southern in the fall. So shout out to our former worship pastor, Jeff Brazel. Down there in Statesboro, First Baptist Statesboro, leading worship down there. So he has the opportunity to influence or even potentially get a babysitter out of my family.
That's right.
Again, so
Jeff, don't go stealing our people.
always
send them back.
That's right. So those are two older kids, and then Eli.
Then surprise.
Yeah. And like I said, God's story.
Yeah, sure.
God's honest truth. Like we were done.
Yeah.
Like many. Had the perfect American family.
We
two
stopped.
Kids.
Boy and a girl.
Boy, girl.
Dog.
We have a dog. We have 2 dogs now. But we got the opportunity to say we're done. Right? Get the perfect family. Got the name living on. And with a last name like mine.
You have a son. Yeah.
I needed a son.
I get it.
Because I'm it.
Yeah.
There's not many of us.
Yep.
You can look it up, Google, give me some results in the show notes or whatever. But like, there's not many Roscoes, at least with the spelling that I have. So it was really important to have a son. So I was like, all right, cool, check, got that. And slowly over time, God decided to change our hearts in different ways.
Yeah.
Of, hey, you're not done.
Okay.
And sometimes it was Lisa. And I was like, nah. We're good. I know how much kids cost.
Yeah, right.
And no. And then other times it was me. And then anyhow, we went through a time of praying and fasting.
Yeah.
Not to make it overly spiritual, but honestly, that's what we did. And we sought the
big
Lord for a period of time. And at the end of that, we did this separately. Same time, we both prayed and fasted.
Okay.
For the same, it was like 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
Some were very specific to some people that we had a relationship with that were having a hard time. But the one constant thing that was really for us was our family.
Yeah.
Were we done? And so at the end of it, we kind of shared with each other what the Lord spoke to us. And I feel like it was as audible as I can experience or recall experiencing. And God really confirmed in my heart that you will have another son. And so it's a little freaky, a little scary. She wasn't as audible or as clear, but was affirmed in her heart that we were not done.
Yeah.
And so there's a gap, lost a kid in the middle of all that, but at the end of the day, we now have an 11-year-old, Eli, who's
awesome.
Pretty amazing kid
he's awesome.
in his own right. So we're incredibly blessed with our kids, and we're in a super, super fun season. We got 2 that are basically adults, and then 1 based on all the things we did wrong with the 2 older ones, have corrected a lot of that. So that's pretty fun. And my biggest thing, I'll even say it online, is we apologize to my older son, Brett, all the time. Say, hey, you were our first.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
We've never raised a 20-year-old before. And I used to say that at different ages. But we've never done this before. So sorry.
Well, you made a statement to me, I think we were talking yesterday. Eli's real big into baseball, and so now it's the All-Stars season, whatever. And we were riding to lunch the other day, and you said Brett, your oldest, because you had coached him.
I know what you're going to say.
He was saying stuff to Eli that you had said to Brett, but now that you don't say to Eli because you learned.
That's right.
And you're like, ugh.
It was happening last night.
Oh, man, yeah.
So we're at the house. I'd gotten home from baseball practice. It's like 9:30, right?
Yeah.
We're there, we're sitting there. Braves game's on. We're on our back porch, just kind of decompressing of the day.
Sure.
Whole family's out there, and I'm just hanging out with Eli.
Yeah.
And Brett's like, "Hey, you should do this. You should do this. Hey, your foot's this, or your arm's this." I'm just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Like we just had practice.
Yeah.
We just worked on 15 things.
Yeah.
Slow down.
But you were telling me like that's what you
how
would,
I was.
That's what you would do to
With
Brett.
him,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's like
100%.
even after practice.
That's right.
And that's so true. I heard people say this before, and I've heard my parents even say this. It's all fun and games until you hear you come out of your kid.
Yes.
And you're like,
Yes.
oof.
Deep
Oof.
breath.
Yeah.
And then you're like, do I just apologize for the next hour? Or
Just sign them up for therapy, man.
yeah. I think
You know,
so.
I mean, I'm a
it'd be
frequent
easier.
flyer.
Yeah.
It's
Be a lot easier on me.
It is, yeah. You know, and then he can work it out on his own.
That's right.
But it's, I don't know, maybe God in his sovereignty just kind of gave you another chance.
Another shot. And it's not that we needed a shot because he's
Sure,
turned
yeah,
out
yeah.
bad. But
Brett's a good kid, man. He's a good man, you know, and you've raised 3 from what all I can tell. Like Shelby and I talk about that a lot, like with you guys, and you know, we don't really know Trent's kids as well, just because we see Erin. She's at our house babysitting,
That's right.
But it's, and I've said that to Brian too. It's like observing y'all with your kids. It you know, kind of parenting goals for us because we're in the thick of it. You know, we got a 7 and a 4-year-old, and all the drama with the 7-year-old, and well, he's 5 now. He just turned 5 this week.
Yeah.
But
Happy birthday, Hap.
Happy birthday, Hap. Forever lives on internet land.
There you go.
Your birthday.
He made it to
But
5.
he's got all the hormones, you know, and he's just kind of he's turned into the aggravating little brother. And you know, Ellie got something from like Five Below yesterday.
Yeah.
That she had spent her money on, and it were these little Lilo and Stitch earbuds. And Hampton wanted to see him, and he was playing, and she was being really nice. And then all of a sudden, he just takes it and chucks it. And I'm like, and I felt the rage in her, and then come over me, and I'm like, you're not going to treat her like that. But it's just impulsive, you know. And
it's a little brother.
He's just being a little brother.
His job is to be a pest.
And he's really good at it. But he can be the sweetest, you know, best kid. So we're in the throes. So it's like observing how you guys have done it. It not only gives us hope, but it's like, okay, we can do this.
The best advice, which is always the advice that you keep in your mouth.
Yeah.
It's in your mind, and you're like, should I say this? Should I not say this? And you're like, I'm going to not say this because all stages of raising kids is challenging.
Sure. Big kids, big problems.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so it just progressively changes, and you'll see. You know, we'll talk to church members, other people on our staff that have grown kids out of the house. We're doing that 30 minutes ago about a situation, and you're like, wow. Doesn't matter the age of your kids.
Yeah.
If you're truly going to honor God with the role that He's trusted you with to be a parent, it doesn't end.
Yeah.
Right? You're always that parent. And just the seasons of life and the seasons of challenges and the types of challenges your kids face that you wish you could fix with the snap of a finger.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't, but you can be there in their life and be involved in their life.
Well, that's
It
part of what I
continues.
wanted to talk to you about today is just, you know, how, like as a dad, as a follower of Christ, as a dad, husband and dad, but then your ministry is your work.
Sure.
You know, that, and you and I have these conversations a lot to where like sometimes your calling and your job intersect. Sometimes they don't. How have you, well, let me get to that in a minute. I do want to acknowledge my Dwarf House coffee mug today because I know that's what you've all been waiting for. Thank you to my good friend and our modern worship leader, Kyle Moody, for this. So if you haven't been to the Dwarf House in Atlanta, it's a Chick-fil-A staple, and they have the best waffles.
Waffles. I've been to a Dwarf House.
Trust me, they're crunchy.
I've never had a
Get
waffle
breakfast. Get breakfast there.
at a Dwarf House.
They're really good. But
it's a whole full sit-down restaurant.
It is. And there are a couple of them.
You can get okra there.
And it's fabulous.
Yeah, it is.
Have you had the burger?
No, because that just seems
Don't
sacrilege.
sleep on it. So it's a
right?
double patty. It's like thin patties, smash burger type,
Yeah.
but it's on that Chick-fil-A bun. It's really good.
Yeah, they had one. So, before living here in Snellville area, we were in Woodstock.
Right.
So there's a Dwarf House off the main highway there in Woodstock. And it was one of those Dwarf House. I don't know if this one is the same that you've been to.
I've been to the one in Hapeville.
Okay. So it's got like regular Chick-fil-A on the left. And you go in and to the right and you can do Dwarf House. So you can sit down.
That's nice.
So you can still order,
Yeah.
get your number one, but someone comes and brings it to you, refills your tea,
How nice.
brings you an ice cream. It's very nice.
That's good living.
It is. Good.
The one in Hateville is all dwarf house.
Okay.
And it has the little bitty door. I've got a picture of Ellington.
The little door.
I can't remember. Yeah, when she was a little dwarf, and could fit through there. She couldn't have been maybe 2 years old. We had come to Atlanta. We were living in Texas, flown to Atlanta for something. Yeah. Had like a long layover, so we left. And anyway, so we went to Dwarf House for the first time, and she got to experience it. But you brought your own coffee cups today.
I did.
That, like mine, are indicative of our personalities.
There you go. You're a dwarf.
I am. I'm a short man, and I do love fried chicken. But I like my coffee cups. But you brought a couple today.
I did. It's kind of fun. So these are both gifts. I did not purchase either
but
of
perfectly,
said cups.
Perfectly applicable to your life.
But as I kind of described, our personalities are fun and can be a little aggressive sometimes. So
just a tad.
Got this nice, wonderful cup from our actual orchestra director, Colin.
Thank you, Colin.
This, and we love coffee around here. So it says coffee because throat punching someone isn't allowed. So
one will land you in jail, one will not.
That's right. So we drink coffee or water in this case today. But part of the personality is there's a lot of hard situations that
you're not drinking coffee
that we may deal with. No, you didn't make me any.
I'm drinking coffee.
I thought you were gonna make some. I wasn't sure how.
I'll go get
worked.
the carafe.
Yeah, so we got some water.
Yeah.
So that's cup one. That's the Jekyll part of my personality, and then the other side, it's look up. Got a little squirrel in it. Finance director gave me this cup because we are constantly chasing squirrels in our day because there's so much going on at Church on Main. So many great things. That
chasing certain people down for receipts.
That's true.
Just saying.
Are we having a confessional here or
no? Not this month.
Okay, good, perfect. So a lot of squirrels that we're always chasing. So we bounce around a lot. So we go from topic to topic to topic just because there's just a lot of great things going on here.
Well, your office is a revolving door.
It is.
It's like every time I go down there, Brandon's office is directly under me, and every time I go down there, there's either somebody in there or somebody coming out, and it's rarely not. I don't know how you get any work done. Shut the door.
It's on the weekend.
Well,
at night.
Teresa's your gatekeeper. She's awesome.
She's
Teresa
amazing.
Williamson.
She's amazing.
So you have a great assistant. I have a fabulous assistant.
Yeah, we often argue. Well, probably shouldn't say it on the air.
Yeah,
but we're doing well in the assistant department.
Mine is the greatest. Brian thinks his is the greatest.
That's right. That's why we are able to be effective.
Trent doesn't have one anymore, so no dog in the hunt. No. I told him the other day he sent out something that had a misspelled word. And I
know what you're talking about.
I said, Trent, okay, number one, the word you put isn't a word, but number two, when are you going to get an assistant that can proofread this stuff for you? He was like, I don't know. I just thought I said it to Siri and it was right.
All right, so shameless plug. Anyone interested in helping Trent out? Trent
we
at
are looking,
churchonmain.net.
We are looking for an administrative assistant for our mission pastor.
He is looking for some help. So
mobilization guy. So he needs some help. Trent at churchonmain.net.
There you go.
So
you can reach Trent.
Let him know.
He would love to help you. He would love to have your help.
Tell Brandon you would love to spell check things for Trent. That'd be half the battle.
That would be.
But like for me, I just tell Barbie, hey Barbie, I need this sent out. Can you make sure it goes out? Because I will correct anything bad you see, and she's very good to do that. Teresa's the same for you. All right.
We're well taken care of here.
Oh, aren't we? Okay, so you've been here 5 years.
Yes, sir.
An executive pastor role. So an executive pastor role in a traditional church setting can mean a few different things. Typically in Southern Baptist life and in Southern Baptist church world, and probably more non-denominational stuff as well, they typically oversee finance, human resources, administration, those type of things. You went to University of Florida, chomp.
Go Gators.
You had a business degree?
I did.
And then you went and got your MBA from
Georgia State.
Okay. And so all of those little things you thought would prepare you for a life in corporate America. Joke's on you.
All right.
Joke's on you.
So now we're in uncorporate America.
Very uncorporate.
Yeah. No, all those were, I don't know exactly where I thought I was going per se, but corporate America and me spent a lot of time together, about 20 years, kind of if you add it all up together. A lot of different roles. Yeah. Even though I was only at a few companies.
Sure.
So
I know you did some like IT.
Yeah, IT,
consulting, all kinds of stuff.
Operational type roles, a lot of customer facing things, and like you said, joke was on me the whole time.
Sure,
because God was obviously uniquely preparing me for something that He already knew, and I had no clue.
Wasn't it interesting? Like, and you can look back at your life, I can look back at mine, and those roles we had outside of the church directly correlated to work that we do inside the church every day. You know, and like 10% of my job is leading worship on Sunday morning.
Sure.
It's the other 90%, you know, the administrative stuff, the planning, the implementation, the long-term vision casting, short-term strategy, all of those things that you have to have, you know, adeptness and awareness to do and to do well to make this machine run. Sure. You know, it's like, I tell people who don't do what we do, I was on a plane and I met a guy who does commercial real estate. And he said, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, I hate this question."
It's the worst question ever.
It is, because I'm like, okay, I don't want to lie, but also if I tell you I'm a pastor, you're just like,
that's right. You
he
use that
gets
P
up
word.
and preaches.
You use the P word, and it changes the dynamic of the conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, fortunately, this guy was like, "Oh, I feel safer on a plane now." I'm like, "Bro, you're just as good as I am."
They either go that route, or they're like, "I'm not a heathen." And you're like, "I didn't say you were. I don't even know you. I don't even know your name."
Yeah, right.
But they jump to that conclusion. It's all of a sudden, I gotta, you know, I gotta brush my hair. I gotta fix my shirt, and I gotta look. I was studying my Bible, and you're like, I'm a real person too.
Well, and you and I both know very well, like we have struggles. We have, you know, every day is a fight.
Yeah.
To maintain our integrity, to maintain our purity, to maintain constant relationship with the Lord. Like, I do not have this all figured out. And man, I heard this said a long time ago. I say it to the choir and orchestra all the time. Like, I'm just a beggar who found bread.
Sure.
And I'm just going to tell everybody else where I found it.
That's right.
You know, it's God's job to clean you up. It's God's job to save you. It's my job to love you, you know, and I think Billy Graham said that the best. It's the Spirit's job to convict. It's God's job to judge. It's my job to love. And that's what, you know, I want to do. But your time in corporate America prepped you so well for what you're doing, what you're doing now. And I think, you know, as someone who spent 20 years, a good chunk of a career in corporate America, knowing how, you know, that work-life balance doesn't really exist. Bringing that into a church where your family takes, you know, kind of a heightened role in what you do. You're very visible.
Very visible.
And so, you know, making sure that your family life is squared as best as you can is a huge part of it. So my question to you is, like, as somebody who spent time in corporate America, and arguably the people who are watching who are either retired or in corporate America or have that same experience, how have you found balance with 2 older kids, now Eli, you know, and maintaining a healthy marriage, and how have you done it?
Honestly, think this always, regardless of your question, my answer is always the same. And what I mean by that is the only way that I can find any balance is by spending time with the Lord.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is that. You could probably see this if you really wanted to. You can't read my handwriting, but every day,
it's true.
Every day, doesn't really matter the day. Doesn't really matter what's going on that day. But every day, I'm spending time reading my Bible and taking notes.
Yeah.
Commentaries are fine.
Yeah.
Devotions are okay. I don't prefer them as much. Now, it's all about the season of life that you're in and just kind of where you're at, of how much additional help that you need in order to speak to where you're at spiritually. Yeah. Is kind of best way to say it. More simple way to say it is, do you know what a devotion book is?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a book of collected thoughts based on scripture and life principles, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
sure. I like to think of it even simpler. It's someone else's quiet time. It's someone else's relationship with the Lord, which can be hugely beneficial.
Sure.
But I'm like, all right, I want to have that. Like, I want to be able to look at what I do and the time I spend with the Lord. And not that I'm ever working on, hey, this could be a great devotional. I had nothing to do with it. But that's what I do every day. Is basically create my own devotional. Yeah. And so I think it's super important. So how do you get balance to me is start with the end in mind. And the end in this case is my relationship with God and Jesus, and trying to make sure, what am I going to do today? Is it going to bring honor to God?
Yeah.
And that's where I start. And
that first fruits, man,
it's
a great principle to live by.
It is, because the reality is we've got so much going on, so you're not going to get it all done.
Yep.
On your own.
Well, I find myself asking myself this question all the time. When I wake up in the morning, what's the first thing I reach for?
Yeah, phone. Yeah.
Guilty. I mean, my Bible app's on there, and
sure, mine too.
But it's
my Bible reading plan.
It's become a very principled thing for me to seek out that Bible app first.
Yeah.
Before I do anything.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair thing, because I definitely do that too. You're like, one of the first things we do, based on what we do, is you look at your phone. You're like, because of our roles,
sure,
and the relationships we have with people. It sounds a little crazy, but we kind of check. Hey, this is something.
Yeah.
Something that needs my attention happen overnight,
yep,
or early this morning, or are my plans being changed today? So
yep,
you can kind of like take a little quick peek.
Sure.
But the sooner you can set that aside, and preferably not look at it at all, that is what I've seen is there's so much going on. The only way to get clarity in my mind and my heart to be able to be effective and productive in a day is to clear out all the noise. And my way of doing that is time.
Yeah.
Both reading and listening.
Just something that grounds you.
And focusing on, and that's inclusive of, like, hey, what's going on today? And making sure that is a process of prayer through what's going on, or people that I know are going through a hard time, make sure praying for them. So like I said, maybe an over spiritual answer, but that is truly my answer.
Yeah.
And it is what has allowed me to find balance and keep my heart right, and keep my anxiety low, and keep.
Well, you make a good point, and I mean, it may sound overly spiritual to some, but I think I spent probably my first 5 years in full-time ministry allowing the work of ministry to suffice for my personal quiet time.
For sure.
Because I was like, oh yeah, of course I read my Bible. Of course I'm thinking through spiritual thoughts and praying and all that. But man, that was so separate. That had to do with my vocation and my calling and what I was doing for others.
Right.
And man, I look back at that time and just look at time missed from a spiritual maturity perspective. And if our objective and our aim is to grow in Christ, to become more like Him, that's what the term Christian means, little Christ, Christ follower. We're following the way of Christ, how He lived, how He said to treat people. If you want a brass tacks, man, like just read the words in red and you'll be all right. And if that is our goal, that is our aim, the other stuff doesn't say you're void of trouble, doesn't say you're void of conflict or difficulty, but when you can ground yourself in that, the other stuff tends to take care of itself. And I've noticed, man, like my blood pressure is way down, my anxiety, incredibly less prevalent in my life because of that. And, when you don't, what do they tell you on an airplane? If an airplane's going down, put on your mask first before you try and take care of others.
Right.
And that's so true because our jobs are so people-centric.
That's right.
And we're taking care of a flock of people, the way the Scripture puts it, as shepherding a flock. Our concern can be for them, and their problems become our problems.
That's right.
And man, when we can kind of separate ourselves from that to say, okay, God, the beauty of Jesus being a very personal Savior and having a personal relationship with Christ is that it's just that.
Yeah.
Personal.
Yeah.
How He speaks to me is not how He speaks to you.
Praise
the
Lord.
Things He's telling you are not the things He's telling me.
That's right.
That's why I believe like you will never find God's plan for your life through somebody else.
That's right.
You just won't. God can use other people to affirm what He's already told you and confirm what Scripture already says, but He will never, ever, ever tell you a plan for your life through somebody else.
That's right.
He just won't.
That's right.
Because it violates His character. It violates the way He has things laid out. And so that's a great point, man. And I think for the young dads that are watching, especially when you're kind of in the throes of it, having that, getting up an extra 15 minutes early.
Sure, whatever it looks
that's
like.
made all the difference for me.
That's right.
And it's just, it matters and it really does help. And as time goes, you see that habit grow. And you see that habit grow into, 30 minutes or, there are times where I've spent hours with the Lord, and sometimes your day doesn't permit that. And so fortunate to get a 2-minute centering and read a verse and, okay, God, how does this apply to me today?
Yeah. But hey, at the end of the day, it's a matter of how much of a priority is it to you?
Absolutely.
Right. And that's a weighty statement. So how important is it to you? I've heard it said this way is if you pictured it this way. So I sit in the same chair every morning.
Yeah.
Same place, same location, not always same time based on kind of what you're saying. You know, the day unfolds differently every day. So it's not always the same time, but in general, it's, very early before anything else in the morning. And so what I would like to picture for those that aren't having that type of moment is, hey, find a place. You need a place. Picture Jesus in that place. So in my case, it's a chair. So picture Jesus sitting in that chair. And if I'm going to rush through the day and rush through the moment and miss my time with Jesus, what would he say to me as I walk out the door? Like, really? You don't need me today? Like, are you really just going to walk right by and not have this conversation in order to get yourself ready for the day? And so that's one of those, like, just visual.
Or even more so, like, hey, I miss you.
Right. Hey, like, I'm here.
I just want to hang out.
Right. I'm still in the same place I've been.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for our conversation and and ready to have it. Like, I'm here and ready for you. So,
well, and I think that's probably highlighted for you, with kids out of the house now.
Yeah.
And when Brett comes home,
sure,
that quality time with him means way more to you than it did 2 years ago.
It does.
And so knowing that absence makes kind of the heart grow fonder, to be all cliche, but it's true. Like that, and I've heard you say things last year when I first came, and Brett coming home, and how much you were looking forward to that. Just kind of him being back in the nest, with everybody together. How much more does our Heavenly Father want that time and that relationship with us?
Yeah, that might be my most favorite part of college.
Yeah.
They come home for the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what that looks like going forward, but
Sure.
Right now he's home and he's with us, and sure, he's got his own things and
Sure.
own plans
Yeah.
and own people, but we do have a time. It was funny. He started coming home at late. I'm like, hey, I know you're used to being by yourself.
Yeah.
But you're home now. And so I need you to just be willing to listen a little, right? I got to put a little pressure here and just think about it. Like, sure, I know you're used to coming home at whatever, 12:30, 1, 2, whatever time in college. But when you're coming home at 1, 2, whatever, to our house, that's impacting me, impacting your mom.
Mama don't sleep till baby's
I'm like,
home.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had some of those early conversations, and we're in a good place right now.
I cannot imagine staying out that late.
I can't either. I'm so tired just thinking about it.
Oh, man. Like 10 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, why wasn't I in bed an hour ago? It's so funny how that works. Like college, I don't know. I've never pulled an all-nighter. Like I could never do that.
All right. I got to tell you a story.
Yeah, go.
So I did it once. I was preparing. This goes back to the story about why I'm proud of Brett.
Yeah.
So freshman year, pretty sure it was first semester. So I thought in my wildest dreams I was going to be a biomedical engineer at Florida. So this was the track I'm on.
Sure.
So I'm taking all these crazy classes.
Yep.
Calculus with some guy that doesn't speak English, biology, chemistry, all these kind of classes like this. And I'm doing awful in all of them because you know me. Yeah. And try to picture me in like this medical kind of engineering world, and it's like that doesn't fit. But so I'm taking this class, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got this biology final. And let's just say I didn't study enough leading up to it. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do an all-nighter. So I got all the Mountain Dew. Shout out to my Mountain Dew fans out there, but
Jamie,
all the things that I need in order to try to stay awake. So I pull the all-nighter, and I study all night long. I put all this effort in way too late. So the amount of retention is negligible, but I do it. And I get to the test. You know what I did at the test?
Bombed it.
Fell asleep.
Did you really?
Fell asleep in the test.
You
So
never
yes,
finished it.
So it is true I bombed it.
Oh my gosh.
Got a sweet D in that class.
Oof.
The only D I ever got in my whole life.
Oof.
And learned a lot of lessons that day.
Yeah, learn to go see your counselor.
I did. They
Get me
said,
out of
hey,
this.
you're here again?
Yeah.
Get me out of this major.
Yeah.
Changed major maybe not that day because I needed to rest, but pretty soon thereafter. And no longer was I
Gosh.
pursuing biomedical kind of things.
I got that nice little letter said, "Hey, maybe you should rethink your choices."
Ooh, I got that letter too.
You're now on academic probation.
I got that letter. I got that letter also, which was quickly followed up by a conversation with my dad.
Yeah.
And so he set me straight. Can't repeat any of which those words were, but it was super clear what his intentions were and what his desires were for me.
And it was quickly adjusted. Yeah. That's somebody said this to Shelby and I about the other kids going to college. They said, sat them down on the porch, got them a cup of coffee, just relax, and the kid was kind of anxious. It was like, okay, what's going on? The dad looked over and said, "Son, I want you to have as much fun as you want to have in college. You go do all the things you want to do, live it up. Like, don't have any regrets. Of course, be careful, but just go have fun. But in 4 years, you will not see a dime from me. Enjoy your experience." And he walked away.
Like, wow.
I'm like,
sobering.
Yeah. It's like, buddy, this is your time. Like, you mess it up, and you got different things to worry about.
That's right.
So starting off your day, and I mean, gosh, do we not hear that all the time? But how often?
But
it took me such a long time to really get to that point.
We all know we need to do it.
Yeah.
At least those that are followers of Christ that have been in church for more than a minute.
Sure.
They know, hey, I need to do this.
Yep.
But how often do people even share what they do?
Yeah.
Or, hey, this might be good for you. Here's some tips, or here's some ideas, or, hey, this has worked for me. Because like you said earlier, what God and how God talks to you is very different than how he would speak to me. So it's kind of like you got to figure out, how do I hear best?
Sure.
And how do I speak best? And
how do you respond best?
There you go. And how does this relationship grow? Because it is different, because the Holy Spirit is a person, right? Is active and alive, and so are we. And so how you interact with every different person you interact with is different. Yeah,
and everything that comes from God, whether in the person of the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, or God the Father, everything elicits a response. Everything. Like, you cannot, just in the same way when you hear the gospel, there is a response. Whether your response is worship, whether your response is coming to know Christ as a personal Savior, whether your response is repentance, whether your response is whatever, there is always a response required.
Yeah, that's right.
Just sitting on the information does no good for anybody.
That's right.
So how have you, with older kids, been able to impart that priority to them?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And I'll say this.
Or even with Eli.
Sure.
Yeah.
All of that, the best way I know how, and I'll say mildly effective, right? Because I can look and observe.
Yeah, sure.
And say, okay. It's not where I know it needs to be in relation to the way my relationship with the Lord is from this specific, like, quiet time or time in the morning or devotion time. But man, don't beat yourself up either, because they are light years beyond where I was at their age.
Sure.
So it's kind of like you got this balance. But to answer your question, it's to model it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, if you do your quiet time or time with the Lord before they even ever see you, will they ever see you? The answer is yes. You may not think so. And so I just think it's that important. So especially in the summer times, they definitely will see you, unless you're like doing a dark 30.
Sure.
But if you're doing that at a normal time, they're going to interact with you, and they're going to walk by, and they're going to get up, and they're going to see you. So I think that's one of those powerful moments of knowing, oh, Dad's in there doing his time with the Lord. And I just think it's so the answer to your question is to model it.
Yeah. I think one of the sweetest times I've experienced as a parent is I was up early. This is when Ellington was still in school this past year. I got up, went downstairs, had my Bible, had coffee. Ellington gets up, says, "Morning, Dad." And I'm like, it's 6:45. Like,
Sure.
Why are you awake? She goes and gets her Bible. Sits down on the other side of the room on the couch. And is just reading.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this matters.
It does.
And I wish I could say I'm consistent to do it at the same time every day in the same spot. And she joined me, and
of course,
no, that doesn't happen. I wish it did.
Right.
But just that little moment was just this huge eye opener for me to say,
she's watching.
Oh, be careful, little.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just everything you do, she's observing. Mm-hmm. Your kids are observing.
That's right.
And they will emulate in some way, shape, or form. They'll emulate, and that, I don't know, man. It was just. It was a good reminder for me to say, okay,
this matters.
This matters. Don't beat yourself up, but
that's right.
What you do will have long-term
effects. That's right. Exactly.
Okay, so spinning into your job as XP, executive pastor at Church on Main, the bulk of what you oversee is finance.
Sure.
We're running.
I was trying to think of how to describe, just to give a word picture. Now, these are. Anytime you try to define something with a descriptive, it's like, okay, not always.
Sure.
So it's not like universal. But like if you take like your role and your primary visible component of your role, right? Leading worship on Sundays, which requires a lot of work during the week in order to be able to do that. And so then you look at, Pastor Brian, congregation sees him open the Word of God on Sundays, and that's his primary visible function. And so as you look at that, you're like, okay, well, I know something that he does in order to prepare for that. Like he's got to get ready. He doesn't just, poof, let me open this, because you hear how he speaks and how it comes across and how deep the message is. That took a lot of preparation time. And so there's that highly visible component. So usually for me, I like to say it this way, my most visible component during the week is not necessarily always to the congregation, even though I'm pretty accessible to them as well. It's to our staff.
Yep.
And so you're leading us in worship and shepherding our hearts during music time, and specifically throughout the entire service. So when I say worship, I mean Sunday morning, whole service. Brian's piece of that is opening the Word and preaching, and if you're ever in need, you know how responsive he is to you in need. So
and overall mission, vision, values of the organization.
That's right. So I kind of see myself more as maybe more of an under shepherd or underling, but more of a shepherd to the staff.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's why my door's open. That's why people are in there. There's a lot of conversation in order to be able to meet the needs of the congregation. We got to meet the needs of the staff and help and coach them and equip them to be able to do the work of the ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good way to put it. I think you, from my observation, you do a really good job of making yourself available, being accessible, but also you're a good problem solver. And I think that's some natural giftings that God has given you and developed in your role, whether in corporate America or through the church as well, but you're a really good problem solver, and somebody you and I bounce stuff off of each other constantly. We're doing that today.
We were.
And just some situations we have going on. And you come to better conclusions when you have more eyes and more ears and more brains on a situation. At some point you got to make a decision. It's I'm a collaborative guy. I'm a team guy. And that's, I think, one of the strengths
of our staff.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I think
collaborative.
One of the strengths of working here and having worked in a few different churches, that's a rarity. It really is a rarity. And, the camaraderie and the collaboration that happens it is really abnormal compared to most. But, I think when you are in an organization of this size, we're 1,000+ people here on Sunday mornings. We have a large staff. We have a multi-million-dollar budget, obligations through that, obviously to payroll and all that kind of stuff, but even more so the obligation to our community to be here for them, to serve our community well. Where are some so the reality is on Sunday morning, that's when people think about church. That's when they come to church. And so they're getting worship through music, through giving, and preaching,
and the groups,
and a response, and a group if they go to a group. Okay, we take about 3 minutes in our service to talk about giving.
That's right.
But it's such a big component of the Christian life.
It is,
and that's where I want to kind of end our time today. Is just like biblical stewardship, not only in your role, but in the role of our individual homes. And remember, churches get a bad rap, like we're always asking for money. We're not. And that's where, whenever I do giving talk, like the way the Lord has worked in my life in the area of giving, it's less about giving stuff that, giving up money that could go to something else, and more about joining in the work that he's already doing.
That's right.
Because if we believe God owns cattle on 1,000 hill and he's not defined by, or his scope is not defined by money or resources, he can do anything. And I really do believe that. Being invited into what that work is already being done, because, man, this church has existed for almost 150 years.
Sure.
So we're already being invited into the work that God's doing through Church on Main. But the importance of biblical stewardship to our church, but also...
Yeah. I don't want to misquote this, but outside of, I want to say, there's like one other topic, and I'll refrain from saying topic because I don't want to be wrong. But money is mentioned in the Bible 600 plus verses, specific verses about stewardship and resources, much more than most things that you would think, oh, yeah, that's
more than heaven, more than hell, more than, yeah.
And you're like, wow, I thought the Bible was about going to heaven. Yeah. Sure, it is. But it's more about us and how we misappropriate so many things, resources being a big piece of that. So even Jesus himself mentions it so many times. I've got this like cool little thing, reference guide, and I think it's on my computer, but it's in my office somewhere. But basically it's outlines every single one of those verses. And you're just like, oh my gosh. It was spoken about so frequently. Why? Because we are so prone to misuse what we've been given. And
one of those verses being, wherever your treasure is, there your heart is also.
That's right. That's right. So that's in Matthew 6. But it's such a powerful, powerful thing. So what do we think about when we think about, hey, who's teaching on these subjects? Most people run to, like Dave Ramsey, something like this. Dave Ramsey's incredibly intelligent, incredibly wise, but he doesn't speak to the whole situation.
Sure.
Right? It's to the person that is in debt, that may be underwater in debt, most likely. How do you get back to even? Fantastic. Such a great wealth of resources to get you back to where you're supposed to be anyhow. Yeah. We're not supposed to be the slave to the lender, right? And, so you look at it from a personal finance standpoint. He helps with his tools get you back to where you're supposed to be. Why? So that you can freely use what God's given you to meet the other needs. Be generous, right? To be a cheerful giver. There's no definition on that, right? And you start looking, my brain goes a million ways when you ask these kind of questions. And honestly, if there's interest, we're wrestling with potentially what to teach in some of our small groups this summer.
Yep.
So Wednesday nights starting back next week on the 5th of June. So all Wednesday nights in June. So
dinner included.
So dinner's great, and we're toying with what should we teach in the group there that meets. We got a men's group, ladies group. They'll pull off and do their own thing, but in that more general area. And one of the topics may be financial or stewardship kind of concepts. And so if that's an interest to the listeners and to our church, I would love to know.
Yeah.
Is that a need? Is that a desire? Would that be beneficial? Could we unpack this for more than a couple of minutes here on a podcast? Could we unpack it for maybe 2, 3, 4 Wednesday nights this summer?
Well, and I do want to say this, just because I know your heart and like you've never publicized this and would never want it, but I'll brag on him.
Yeah.
I know you have sat down with people in our congregation who have found themselves in a big hole.
Sure.
And helped them figure out a way to get out of it. And so, I don't know, maybe that's you. Like, email Brandon, brosco@churchonmain.net, ROSKO. We'll put that in the show notes, Mike. But email him, man, just reach out to him. He'd love to sit down with you and just look at your finances and figure out a way so that you can be generous with what God has given you, but also to get that stress off of you. I mean, Barner's research shows that money is the number one stressor in the life of a believer and their families.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, it's one of those under the auspice of my role that I do speak a lot into a lot of situations, and I don't find joy in the situation, but I do find some passion and fulfillment in helping people make sense out of the situation. And that's usually what it is the overwhelmingness of where you're at and the fear or uncertainty that you're facing that tends to capture your mind and your heart. But you're like, no. Let's look at it differently. Let's look at it, you know, God's way and God's perspective on this, and, you know, map it out and show you there is a way out.
Yep.
There is a productive way out. And, you know, some of that's related to debt and those kind of things, which, you know, Dave Ramsey would speak on. But others, there's so many other tools and ways to simplify your life and simplify your budget. And, you know, you throw out that B word, and most people may or may not even know what a budget is or how to construct it. Yeah, those are easy conversations.
I mean, dude, we're in that season for our family. Like I just cut the cable streaming mainly because they aren't carrying the Braves channel anymore. But whatever. But I mean, that was $120 a month,
right?
Cost saver for us. You know, there's some other areas that we've been able to cut that for this season, like we had to make some tough decisions. So I'm coming over to your house to watch Braves games from now on.
Come on.
Or Trent's got the basement.
Trent's got like 18 TVs with,
but
like,
he lives like an hour from here.
That's true.
So
I'm a lot closer.
I'm coming to your house.
I'm a lot closer, and I got the Braves on.
And I like your dog.
Yeah, my dog's cool.
Your dog's awesome. That's awesome, man. So yeah, thanks for your time today. Thanks for hanging out. Next time Brian misses, we'll just keep doing this.
Just do this again.
But there's a whole. I mean, you're a bit of an onion, as am I. Got to peel back those layers.
It takes a while to get to know us.
So, in that vein, as we wrap up our time today,
I'm gonna use this.
You ready?
I'm gonna use this cup because I feel like this is gonna get stressful for me.
Maybe because I've got some rapid fire questions. You ready? All right. Oh, there it is. Okay. What was your favorite age you've ever been?
Ooh. I'll say now.
Okay.
Here's the deal.
You don't miss being a kid? Like, or college?
One of my idiosyncrasies or faults or good qualities, I don't really know, is I'm a very like process kind of guy. So like when something happens, I just turn a page. And
you can forget it. Yeah.
I can move on so quickly. And that's why I say it could be a problem because people are still wanting to maybe dwell on something. I'm like, that was yesterday. I'm done with yesterday.
Oh, I envy that.
So I'm a big move on guy. I don't have a lot of regrets. Sure, I can look back and say that was a mistake. What did I learn from it? But I'll say now.
My wife has that ability.
Yeah.
Like she's so good at that.
Yeah.
And I'm horrible at it.
Yeah.
I envy that.
Philippians 3:13, I want to say. Press on towards the upward.
I don't need your Bible quotes.
You don't need a Bible verse?
No.
There's always a Bible verse for everything.
No, because I like to be in my feelings sometimes. Okay. What's your favorite thing to do in the summertime?
Oh, my gosh. So what do I do? What's my favorite?
What's your favorite thing to do?
Man.
Don't overthink it.
Great question. Two things. One, I love people.
Yeah.
I said that as a caveat and a kind of cringe on my face. I like certain people.
So true.
So if I'm around those certain people, I love it. So I love being around people. So right now, man, we're heavy in baseball, and it's just for this month. I absolutely love to see young people come alive. Yeah,
that's fun.
And so most people don't like middle schoolers. It just so happens that I used to coach cross country, middle school kids, and now I'm coaching baseball. It's middle school, predominantly kids on our team. And so it's such a unfavorable age for kids.
Most awkward 3 years of my life.
It's awful for most people. But it's so fun to speak in and see them just kind of grow.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I'll say the beach.
Yeah.
I love to be at the beach.
Well, your mom lives in Florida.
She does. I grew up in Florida.
You grew up in Florida. So yeah, and you're on the pretty side.
Yeah.
You're in the Gulf.
Yeah.
So
it's
nice.
a wonderful place to be. It's one of my favorite places. And if I can unplug and pull away, you'll probably find me there.
Yeah. What was your major in college?
All right. So it's called Decision and Information Sciences.
Good Lord.
I don't know, man. They made it up. I didn't make it up, but it was out of the business school. So
interdisciplinary studies.
It was. It's not even a degree you can get anymore. Back when I was in college, here we are. Get off my lawn, right?
Yeah.
I'm so old. But back in my day, it was geared. This was heavy when consulting became a thing.
Oh, okay.
So you had the big firms, you know, your Accentures and Anderson Consulting and Deloitte and all those guys. It was a degree that was set up by those large companies to grow. Grow's a bad word, but grow.
Yes.
Consultants.
Prepare
consultants. Yeah. Prepare people for consultant work. So it was a hybrid of systems. So it's kind of like computer science, and it was kind of like business, but it was more on the business side.
You're a money guy.
Uh-huh.
What is one thing that you don't even think about spending money on? Like that you would spend an exorbitant amount of money on. You don't care.
There's nothing.
Nothing. Like you're always analyzing the cost.
It started when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, telling my sister a little bit. So I have a sister.
Yeah.
She's older. She's awesome. I love my sister. Name's Shane. She lives in Chicago. Got a great family. And so when I was a kid, so I'm almost 4 years younger than her. Mm-hmm. I was the bank. She never had money. I always had money.
And you charge interest.
I did charge interest.
Not surprised.
And I never got it, but I always charged it.
Of course not.
I was trying, So ever since I was a little kid, I always counted the cost.
That's interesting.
And so I've always been wired that way. I've always lived that way.
Mine's guitars.
Guitars?
Yeah.
I can't play
acoustic guitars.
I can't play anything.
I will spend stupid money.
I can play Spotify. I used to say I could play a CD player, but those don't
Would you
exist.
play Kellan Monroe on Spotify?
I will get you a couple extra dollars.
Please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, my music's available on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube, all the streaming platforms. We can put that in the show notes. Thank you for the royalties. Is your bed made right now?
Probably.
Because Lisa did it.
That's right. I didn't do it.
Okay.
I was the last one to get out of it. So in full transparency, she's an earlier riser than I. I rise early, but not as early.
Sure.
But she probably made it. That's something we're working on with Eli right now.
Making his bed?
Yeah. Hey,
why?
That is a rule for him.
He doesn't see you do it.
I don't care. My bed is made.
So why would he do it if he doesn't observe you doing it? See how I turned that on you?
You turned this all around on me and
okay.
made me a bad person
all
of a sudden.
We're going to play the favorite game. Favorite board game?
Monopoly.
Okay. Favorite food?
Man. Okay. All right. Just go Mexican. I love me some tacos.
That's a good. Favorite sports team?
Florida Gators.
Really?
Easy.
Not the Braves?
Okay. So I love the Braves.
No caveats.
Here's why I love the Braves. So back when I was growing up, going back up to all these stories, I grew up in Florida.
Yep.
There was no Florida baseball teams. No
good
Miami
ones.
Marlins, no Tampa Bay Rays,
Yeah.
and they're still awful. So I don't really consider them teams. But because of our good friend Ted Turner,
TBS baby,
man, I was TBS
America's
kid.
team.
Got America's team,
Yep.
Southeast for sure. I grew up watching the Braves.
Everybody could watch the Braves.
So I was a Braves fan ever since a little kid. So I probably was
That's why
the
I'm
longest.
so ticked with this whole regional sports coverage thing.
It's awful.
It's so bad. And then they get in these contract disputes, like what happened with Xfinity. Sorry to name drop, but
the irony is, the Braves are sponsored by them.
yeah,
Their broadcast is sponsored by them, but they're not even
and
on.
I can't even get it.
That's right.
So frustrating.
Rob Manfred, if you're listening, we would sure like to end
It's your
MLB
fault.
blackouts because it's ridiculous.
Or just just put them all on MLB Network. I'll pay for MLB Network so I can watch whatever game I want.
So our phone provider gives us MLB Network for free.
But then it's
What's
blacked
the only
out.
team I can't watch?
The Braves,
The only
because
team
you're
I want
blacked
to
out.
watch.
Yeah. It's so
It's bad. Sorry. We're bitter on that.
why? I'm a capitalist. I really am.
That's
and I
right.
get it. But anyway.
The reality is I would cut any kind of streaming that I have if they offered one thing that had the Braves.
100%.
And that's the only thing that would be on in my house.
I would agree with you. Okay, you're a Florida guy.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite Disney character?
I don't like Disney. I've been so many times.
I didn't say Disney World. I said
All right,
character.
Like the kids in our area.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, they all have to watch, what's that goofy movie? Polar Express.
Oh, yeah. Love that movie.
Yeah, well, they watch it every year. So you're like, as a parent, you're like gearing up. Oh, okay, hey, we want to watch Polar Express because it's kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
And all the kids hate it because they're forced to watch it in their school.
Oh.
So why I relate that to this is at the end of every school year, guess where we went?
Disney.
Disney World.
Yeah. So now you had it.
So now I'm like, I'm good. I've been there, done that. I want to say my favorite character is Goofy, though.
Fitting.
Yeah. Mm.
Big ear. I'm
Yeah,
kidding. Okay. Favorite car you've ever owned?
I don't know if I've ever loved any of my cars. I'll go with the truck that I gave to Brett.
Oh.
That if he's listening, needs to get back to me.
Ooh. Call out, Brett.
Yeah, there you go.
See if he'll switch his car with your truck. I bet it's nicer.
I've got a lot more features on my car.
Yeah. You have a nice car. It's always clean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are you most looking forward to this summer?
There's some projects that I'm working on for the church.
Okay.
And I'm hopeful.
Can't say them right now.
I can't talk out loud about them.
Yeah.
But if you come by my office, I'll tell you about them.
Oh.
That may start to appear as completed. I like to complete things. Mm-hmm. So going back to moving on to the next day. So completing things, execution, finishing. I love to finish.
Turn a page.
I'd like to move on. So I'm looking forward to maybe some of those coming to a close.
Last question. Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite kid?
I don't have one.
That's a lie.
I have a T-shirt that was given to me, and it says, "This T-shirt was given to you by my favorite kid."
Who gave it to you?
Aaron gave it to me.
Yeah, of course.
But I haven't worn it.
Oh.
Because I feel like I'm cheating. I love all my kids. All my kids are great, and they're
Who's your favorite, though?
I can't say.
Who's Lisa's favorite? Eli.
I don't know if she likes any of them. I kid. She likes all of them way more than I do.
Yeah. I think Eli's her favorite.
He requires the most attention and time. Yeah. So.
Well, he's diabetic. That's not his fault.
I know. He didn't ask for
Rude.
that. He didn't ask for that.
Gosh, he's a funny
challenge.
Kid. All right. Brosco, you like how I did that?
That's good.
Okay. Good to have you on the podcast.
Sure.
Thanks for being here. And thank you for watching. If you need financial help of any kind, if you would like to know more about Church on Main, how we do our budget, the missions giving that we do, all the community help that we do, he would love to chat with you about that. You can email Roscoe, Rosko, at churchonmain.net. It's in the show notes. Or if you want to visit churchonmain.net, you can find out all the information. Be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. Like, subscribe so you know when this stuff is coming. We love you. Thank you so much for being here. Pastor Brian is back next week in the pulpit, and we will do another sermon recap. Unless he doesn't, and then I'll just subject you to more random questions.
Sounds good.
And maybe you'll figure out who your favorite kid is.
There it is. All right. I'll work on it.
See you guys. Have a great week.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.